consumers usually get to play their games once they are finished. It's only in some cases that gamers get to play their games in early development, or rarely do they see them in beta form. Not in this case, not here. Here in the beta zone. The Pink Puffball, also known as Kirby, has been around since Nintendo's gaming beginnings. He had been in many of his own games since the NES, traveling through Dreamland, beating up King Dedede,
What am I doing wrong?
and taking on Meta Knight. Then came the Nintendo 64, and the wealth of games the previous consoles was nowhere in sight. The first sparkles of a Kirby game for the Nintendo 64 began with a completely different title called Kirby's Air Ride. Some of you may be thinking of Kirby Air Ride for the Nintendo GameCube. Well, the two titles do share some gameplay mechanics but are different. Kirby's Air Ride is for another beta zone, but how it relates to the story is now upon us. Kirby's Air Ride was delayed many times and never got a formalized final cancellation by Nintendo and HAL Laboratory. But then, in 1999, at that year's E3, a video was seen of a game called Kirby 64 that took the place of Kirby's Air Ride's spot. Nintendo and HAL Laboratory's reasoning for switching to Kirby 64 was probably that Kirby's Air Ride wasn't going to be ready in time, and from within HAL Laboratory was another Kirby game that fit the Kirby series. It's certain that the history behind Kirby 64 is interesting, but it gets even more intriguing. Halfway through the N64 5-year generation cycle, Nintendo created an add-on called 64DD, or also known as 64 disk drive, which attached to the bottom of an N64 and allowed it to read disk drives, have internet access, a mouse, capture card, and expanded RAM. Well, Kirby 64 was being developed for the 64DD, but the 64DD kept getting delayed and it was just a flop in Japan. So Kirby 64 development moved over to the N64 in 1999. All the beta footage and pictures for Kirby 64 all came from the time period of E3 99 and Space World 99 to November 15th, 1999. The beta did contain features that were cut from the final version we now call Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards. The first and most obvious change is the HUD in Kirby 64. In the beta, the HUD had many more yellow semicircles, which are health, than in the final version. Stars collected through the journey was once actually shown in the HUD, with only 6 stars needed to gain a new life, then the final version's 30 stars to fill the bar. There is also 3 noticeable blue icons in the bottom left, which probably indicate the 3 other characters that were playable in the beta. Yes, that's right, Kirby 64 could have had multiple characters for you to play as. There's an even older picture from a Japanese magazine which shows a completely different HUD. This scan is probably the oldest found image of the game. You'll quickly notice that King Dedede, Waddle Dee, and Adeline icons appeared next to Kirby. Why are they there? Were they playable? Well, at one time, those 3 characters were once selectable characters. They were later taken out with no reason given. The only other character that is playable in the final game is King Dedede, but only in select special areas of the game. Even in the game's cutscenes, the characters are journeying together, so it once made even more sense that they were playable. There are a few images from the beta of the other characters in levels like King Dedede swimming, Waddle Dee near a doorway, and Adeline attacking a beach spider. It would have been nice to play as the other characters. They could have had different types of standard attacks, but that info has now been lost. The characters' icons and elements of the HUD share a look that could have been in a Super NES Kirby game like Kirby Superstar. The green blocks are health, and the smaller grayed out box is where the stars would have gone. To the right is where the players can see the current abilities they have combined. At one time, the players could have combined its spark ability with rock ability, making Kirby turn into different solid objects like an E-prong chip that was later replaced with the electric boulder move. All the things I mentioned were taken out in the final version, but a few things were left in. The developer for some reason left 3 songs sitting there unused. I'll play them in the background for you now. The last tidbit of info about the beta was that the game once contained more aquatic levels, but just never made it to the final version. A lot of people will say in most games, underwater levels are the least enjoyable to traverse through, so that could have been a reason. It could have also been that most of these features didn't make it because of the lack of extra time the developer needed to implement them quickly into the game. In November 1999, the last images of the beta appeared, but in January 2000, the final version of the game we called Kirby 64, the Crystal Shard, started to become what we know it as. A few months later, the game was released in Japan on March 27, 2000, and June 26, 2000 in the US. That isn't a lot of time, so that might have been the reasonings the features were cut out. It would have been wonderful to have the fully realized version, but time has once again taken it from us. And that is it for Kirby 64, the Crystal Shard Beta, for the Nintendo 64. Please don't forget to check out our Super Smash Bros. Breakdown Kirby analysis, which Luis did, so please don't forget to check it out. It'll be in the description down below and annotated on the screen, so check that out. If you have any other suggestions or games you want us to look at, please leave a comment. Also follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to continue to get new episodes of Beta Zone. Thank you guys for sticking around and supporting us. We will see you guys next time in the next Beta Zone.